Let's jump into this podcast with NBA playoffs and the NBA Finals. Again, as I mentioned, we are at the doorstep tomorrow night, June 1st. I will be in a Trolley Wing Co. eating my weight in wings and enjoying the finals, as is the tradition in the Graf household. We celebrate game one of the finals with wings, and so that's what we'll be doing, Caitlin and I, tomorrow night to watch this finals between the Nuggets and the Heat. And before we get into that matchup, Mitch, let's just look back at the conference finals. And
I do have to say, though, because I have had the privilege of partaking in your Graf family tradition of wings during the finals. Best finals tradition, I think that's around right now.
It's a good one.
It's a really good one. So,
and you know what? Caitlin doesn't care about basketball at all, the NBA at all. Like,
she's in it for the wings. Like, I get it. Yeah.
But like literally, come April, once the playoffs start, she's like, "All right, so when do the finals start again? Like when are we doing our wings again?" Like, she's like in. I love it. So yes, right. That's what we'll be doing tomorrow night. But let's start with the series, the conference final series that was least interesting. That was the Western Conference Finals between the number 1 seed Nuggets and the 7 seed Los Angeles Lakers, and the Nuggets taking care of business easily, a sweep of the Lakers. 4 games, Nuggets advanced to the their first NBA Finals in team history. So obviously a historic moment for the Denver Nuggets franchise, and pulling off an impressive sweep of the Lakers. They just dominated them. They just overpowered them with offense. And the Lakers' calling card in the back half of the season and through their playoff run was that defense and their ability to sort of hunker down and really sort of control and grind out the game, get to the free throw line, wrap up rebounds. That's what they were doing. And none of that worked against the Nuggets. The Nuggets just blitzed them. They had no answer for Jokic. They had no answer for anybody. And other than a close game 2 and obviously a game 4 in which LeBron put it all on the line and, and tried to stave off the sweep, Nuggets pretty much handled the Lakers in this series, and I was obviously very surprised by that and extremely impressed by the Nuggets in that series.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot like what I had talked about the last time we had discussed this matchup. The Lakers weren't going to have the opportunity to control the pace like they had in the previous series against the Grizzlies and the Warriors, right? They didn't have that opportunity to slow the game down and play their game because the Nuggets played a very similar game to them, and they do it better, right? And so offensively, they were just going to get outmatched. I know the Lakers, like you had mentioned, really had their trademark the back half of the year had been hunkering down on defense, controlling tempo, which is exactly what the Nuggets did. The Nuggets just happened to do it better. So this was I had picked the Nuggets in 6. I thought the Lakers were going to put up a little bit more of a fight, have some of those games where, AD does one of those 40-20 games and, they're going to, or, someone's going to step up, whether it's Vanderbilt or LeBron or someone's going to step up and have a big night. And that just didn't really happen for them. The Nuggets really just were in control from the word go, even in the close matchup. So, good solid win for the Nuggets. I think the right team won. I think the better team won. The Nuggets, congratulations. You are back in the NBA Finals for, I think it's the first time in forever.
I think it's their first time ever. I don't think they've ever made the NBA Finals until this year. So this is history for the Nuggets. And yeah, I think the Lakers just kind of ran out of steam, right? Whatever momentum they were riding through that playoff, it just kind of came to an end against a really good team. The number 1 offense in the NBA in the regular season was the Denver Nuggets. And yeah, I mean, they put up 132 points in game 1. I mean, came out and just was like, yep, this is what it's going to be like this series. And didn't let up. Impressive for Denver.
It's hard with a roster too that's so split with with veterans and young pieces when you're arguably your most important veteran pieces like 37, 38 years old in LeBron James. It's hard to carry a team in that sense. AD just hasn't been able to do that. So, I mean, the Lakers, they They had a tough draw. They had a tough draw with Denver, I think.
Yeah, well, and the role players didn't show up in the ways that they were in those first two series, right? You didn't have Austin Reeves going for 30. You didn't have Hachimura going for 30, right? You didn't have those moments that supplemented LeBron, supplemented when AD wasn't. And you didn't see that at all in the Denver series. So again, yeah, Nuggets advancing, and they'll take on the Heat. Let's get to that Eastern Conference Finals, which was a great series, as we anticipated. It didn't look like it at the beginning, though, as Miami jumped out to that 3-0 start, winning the first two games in Boston, taking the 3-0 lead. No team's ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. It's like, all right, Denver's going to sweep LA. Miami's going to sweep Boston. And then we're just moving right on to the finals, apparently. But Boston said, hold on a minute. We're not going away quite yet. And they were able to reel off three impressive wins. Game 6 in particular, the Derek White put back with 0.2 seconds. I mean, just an incredible sequence at the end of the game, an incredible moment. It hits a little differently after Celtics lose Game 7 at home in embarrassing fashion. Just it looked flat and came out with no effort. Miami just handled them on the road in Game 7, and Miami advances in 7 games in this series, just as you predicted, my friend. I had Boston in 7, you had Miami in 7. We knew this was going to come down to the TD Garden, Game 7 on the line. And it was Miami who showed up despite blowing the 3-0 lead and letting the series get back tied. Jimmy buckets and that Miami team stepped up. I mean, Caleb Martin stepped up. Like, we could really be honest. Like, this team stepped up to get it done in a big way.
Caleb Martin was borderline MVP of the series. I mean, this guy
almost won the award. He was one vote shy of Jimmy.
He was fantastic in that series. And you know what? The Derek White play is probably going to be the best forgotten play in NBA playoffs history. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was so clutch. So clutch. Yeah. I was watching it live. And I thought, watching it, in full speed, there's no way he got that off. There's no way. And then when you slow it down and you look, it leaves his hand just in time. Like, holy smokes, he did get that off. And I thought the series was over. Going into the game, going back to TD Garden, Game 7, Celtics at home, riding the momentum, the high of the 3 straight wins, the big emotional win in Game 6. It had all the makings for that. Jason Tatum rolls the ankle early in the first quarter. In fact, like the first offensive possession of the game, he rolls the ankle. He's hobbled the rest of the night. Jaylen Brown just was completely off. 8 turnovers, which is a career high, the most by a Celtic since Larry Bird in 1981. Most turnovers committed in a game by a Celtic since Larry Bird, 1981. The Heat just absolutely dominated them in Game 7. You could point to Jimmy buckets. You could point to a multitude of things, but Hemi Butler,
Himothy buckets.
He is him. Jimmy Butler is. I've said it for the last few years. He's a stone cold killer when it comes to crunch time, and he showed it again in Game 7.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what it came down to. And, I think for the Celtics, it's a disappointing end, obviously, after that great comeback in the series. But it's a lot of the same issues they had in that final series last year against the Warriors. It was just like Tatum was there, but Brown just didn't get enough. They were inefficient. They turned it over too much. And when they didn't hit the 3, they were never going to win. If they couldn't hit over 36%, they were never going to win. And that was the case in this series. So, impressive for Miami to have those 3 straight losses and hunker down in Game 7 on the road and say, no, we're not doing this. We're going to the finals. And so pressed by that.
Very, very quickly before we move on, because this has been a topic of discussion now, because the Celtics have now been in the Eastern Conference Finals for how many years in a row is this? Like, was it 3?
I think it's 3 years? 3 now in a row.
3 in a row. With the same group of guys, nothing has changed. They've fallen short every time. Jaylen Brown is up for a supermax, right? He's going to be looking at like a $295 million contract. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Is Jaylen Brown worth the supermax, or do they need to make a change to make the push to get to that finals appearance?
Well, I think those are 2 different questions. I think, is he worth the supermax? Depends on what team. Should the Celtics keep him if they want to win an NBA Finals? No. I think if they want to win a Finals, they've got to find a different running mate for Jason Tatum, because I think they're too similar and their weaknesses are too similar, and they get in these situations where they're both ineffective and there's nothing else that can be done. You need more of a balance on that team. So they should be trying to shop Jaylen Brown. I think they should be trying to go get Dame. I think they should be trying to shop to Portland to trade Jaylen Brown to Portland. And then Portland can use that number 3 pick to pair with Jaylen Brown and start building something anew. And they should go trade Damian Lillard to Boston. That would be the type of player alongside Jason Tatum. Perfect pairing, much more of a balanced pair. And that gives them an increased odds to win the finals. So I do think he could be worth the max for the right team, but not for Boston. And if they want to win a finals, they got to separate this pair. And Tatum is obviously that guy. So Brown's got to go.
I like that. A lot. Get you in an NBA office, my friend. Get you in an NBA front office.
I mean, if you want to win rings, I'm just saying. But,
call your boy over here.
All righty, Mitch. NBA Finals again. Nuggets and Heat. The 1 seed Denver. The 8 seed Miami. And here we are. A great matchup. And a matchup in which Denver, as the 1 seed, is heavily favored. ESPN's BPI odds gives Denver an 89% chance of winning this series. In fact, in game 1 at home, Denver has a 9 point. They're favored by 9 points in game 1 at home, which is a lot for the NBA final. I know it's the NBA final. I know they're at home and they're the 1 seed, but 9 points is a lot in an NBA Finals game when you're looking at Timothy buckets and the Miami Heat on the other side. So clearly, the numbers and Vegas and everything is telling us Denver should win and should, sort of cakewalk in this series. They should be able to handle this series. But I think this is a really interesting series because you do have a more talented team, a better team, quote unquote, in Denver as the 1 seed, proven best offense in the NBA, rolling through the playoffs. They've lost 3 playoff games in 3 series. Only 3 playoff games they've dropped this whole playoff. So clearly Denver's it. But this is their first finals appearance as a franchise, let alone as this unit. None of these guys, besides KCP, right? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, none of these guys have even played in a finals, right? Jokic, Murray, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, Mike Malone, the head coach. This is all their first time rolling through this thing. And guess who has experience in this dance? Jimmy Butler and this Miami Heat. Not only has Eric Spoelstra been with the Heat for over a decade and won an NBA Finals with LeBron, but this team went to the finals a few years ago against LA with pretty much this iteration of the team. The core of this team is exactly the same. And they've got some additional pieces that help with experience. So you have a team that's should be the underdog, but has vastly superior experience and should be more comfortable at this stage. So I think this is much more of an even contest than these odds are giving it, giving the Heat a chance here. I think this is a much more even matchup based on all those factors. What do you think?
You just can't count Miami out. I'm going off gut. I'm going off gut.
Yeah.
Like you came in with all the right analytics and all the right stuff. Going off gut, which is kind of where I'm on brand here. You can't count Miami out. You just can't. Jimmy Butler we've seen Jimmy Butler the last few years, how he's just absolutely turned it on when he needs to, right? Mm-hmm. And he's fallen short a couple times. This year feels different with him. This year feels like he knows that there is unfinished business. No matter, they could be up 3-0. And he's like, nah, I'm not putting on cruise control. We're gonna drive the spike right now, and we're gonna sweep them in 4. And granted, I wish we would have saw that a little bit more in the last series, but give me a scare there, Jimmy. But this just feels different for the Heat. I love that. I love to see the Nuggets there. Jokic is an MVP, a top 5 player in the league, an all-world team leader when it comes to leading a group of men. This guy knows how to lead a team to the promised land, and he's got his opportunity right here in front of him. I think this really comes down to will, and it comes down to the will of Jimmy Butler to will this 8 seed into an NBA Finals championship, and the will of Jokic to finally get the job done and prove that he can be a championship winning superstar in this league, not just a superstar on a very good team. And that's where I feel like this is going to that's going to be the key matchup for me. Though they may not be guarding each other, who's going to outball who in this matchup, Jokic or Butler?
It's a legacy series for both those players. I mean, imagine if Jimmy Butler can walk away saying, I was an NBA champion with how good he was. And, you know, in such a complicated career, right? And all the different places he went and left a lot of places on bad terms. But to be able to stamp NBA champion on his resume would be huge for him. And on the other side, for Jokic, I mean, there's people that still doubt him, even though he's a 2-time MVP. There will people who look back on him in history and say, was he really that good? Was it just all padded stats? But if he's an NBA champion on top of that, if he's won that ring, then that argument, you can't really make that argument. It changes the conversation around him. You can now be in that conversation for one of the greats if you're Jokic. So I think for both these players, it's a huge opportunity in this series to really cement their legacies in the NBA.
And that's where I think it means more to Jimmy, is because he has been an elite player in this league that has been overshadowed his entire career by the LeBrons, the Steph Currys, the James Hardens, the Kevin Durants, the Kawhi Leonards. He has been constantly, the Paul Georges, he has been constantly overshadowed by players that he's just as good as, but he hasn't been in as good of a situation as they have been in. So this is his opportunity to shine and make the point like, hey, look, I am one of the elite players of my time right here, right now. I think this might mean a little bit more to him. And Dallen, if I can, I'll just submit my pick for these finals right now. I'm going with Miami in 7.
Okay.
I'm going with Miami in 7. This is Jimmy's time. And Jimmy Butler might be my favorite player in the NBA right now. And it's because of his, dare I say it, Mamba mentality.
Yep.
Mamba mentality. He knows when to strike, and he strikes hard, and he doesn't let up until the job is done. I'm going with Miami in 7.
Yeah. You know, Mitch, I wisely, like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, picked Miami to be the NBA champions of the 2022-2023 NBA season.
Do it.
And I would be a fool now. I've never wavered on that. on that take
until now.
Until until all the times I didn't pick Miami to win their series like last series. But now I feel assured, Mitch, that that take back in October was correct and that Miami is going to win this thing. I'm with you. It just feels like they are the team destined to do this. Their experience in losing the finals in the bubble to the Lakers, Eric Spoelstra's, and I think this is going to be the biggest thing for me. Eric Spoelstra versus Mike Malone is the biggest matchup in this series to me. By far. It's not on the court. It is those two guys. And my money is on Spoelstra to make the right moves, make the right decisions when he needs to, turn momentum in the series when he needs to, and in a game, and manage that correctly and allow Jimmy to beat Jimmy when that needs to happen. And Miami is going to take care of business. I've got the Heat in 6. They get it done in Miami, Mitch. They don't mess it up like they did last series. They don't let it go back to a game 7 on the road to have to win it. They get game 6 of Miami and they finish it there. I've got Miami in 6, and we both got the Heat to be the NBA Finals champions in 2023. 8 seed Miami. What a crazy story.
What a wild story.
Yeah.
What a wild story.
Love
and
it.
I think you bring up a great point. Eric Spoelstra, one of the great coaches of our time. I mean, kind of the, I don't know, you can't call him the Pat Riley or the Phil Jackson of our time, but you kind of can, because of what the parity in the NBA that there is nowadays, where there's not a bunch of repeat winners, right? Eric Spoelstra is one of the great coaches of his era. He hasn't won since LeBron was in Miami. It feels like he's due now to beat the team that just knocked out LeBron. Feels like he is due right now to get another one. And you know what? Eric Spoelstra, though they're an 8 seed, might be the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion. And I feel like him and Mike Malone's going to be really challenged to outcoach Eric Spoelstra. And I don't know if Mike Malone's really there yet. Eric Spoelstra's just he's another level of coaching. Yep.
I think experience will pay off in this series, and we shall see. It should be competitive, and cannot wait. That's our picks for the NBA Finals. Let us know who you think is going to win the NBA Finals this year. Do you have Denver winning their first NBA title, or do you have Jimmy Buckets in the Miami Heat taking it, the Larry O'Brien Trophy home this year? Let us know if you're watching live on Twitter and YouTube. Let us know in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, shoot us a message. Let us know who you're picking in this